Hello, YouTube and BitChute friends. I think I'll post on both. And this video is called Crisis Actors, but it has nothing to do with crisis actors. And the reason I'm calling this video Crisis Actors is Matt from Quantum of Conscience was talking about the realities that break down around us, and it's so obvious, but nobody wants to listen. And you analyze how reality is breaking down. And one of the things apparently he can't say is crisis actors, but this video is not about crisis actors. I'm just checking to see if I say crisis actor would get me a strike, because I'm interested in the whole censorship that is occurring, which is actually part of the idea of people like Quantum of Conscience who are restricted to communicating with their fellow human beings and are distressed about how our fellow human being is not aware of the fact that reality, as he says, is breaking down. It's like a dysfunction within the human race that he's identified correctly. But the distress associated with being unable to communicate something to your fellow human being when it appears and feels to be so obvious. And I would say that I agree with him. It's the events that are being presented to us as being the real world make no sense from all the curious, ridiculous anomalies associated with major events like the 9/11 event, or even going back to people being killed, like presidents being killed, and the anomalies associated with all those events. Matt calls them reality breakdowns. And I think that the reason I want to talk about, rather, I don't want to talk about crisis actors. So YouTube, you can't censor this. Even a lowly artist with barely 100 views, if I'm lucky. Great YouTubers that leave comments on the few views I get. I really enjoy and appreciate the comments I do get, but why would YouTube be interested in somebody that gets 100 views on average? But I'll check crisis actors. This YouTube is not about crisis actors. What it is about is the nature of our reality as I see it. I think this is a very noble effort by people who are called philosophers and mindful, thoughtful people who are engaged with reality, establishing a relationship with reality that makes sense. This is very important. I like things that make sense from the point of view when I'm not in my imagination, or if I'm in my studio making paintings. I have the luxury of making things, inventing things that on the surface don't make sense. But then some mindful, thoughtful people may call them metaphors or analogies. And this is very important for the artist to have that freedom to explore things that don't make sense. But when that is transferred into the real world, where people eat, interact, create things that help us go, that make us go, there is very little room for making shit up. You have to actually, when the rubber meets the road, you can't sort of fantasize and have wishful thinking about stuff. You can theorize and make stories about things, and quite often those stories, in fact, I think all stories are metaphors on some level. Some are better, some are worse. Some people are better at telling stories than other people. And what I'm interested in, different from people like Matt from Quantum of Conscience, or the hardcore truthers like Russian Vids, or even Jeranism on the nature of our realm? What kind of world do we live on? Is it a ball? Is it something other than a ball? What is it? What interests me for the most part is contextual, meaning understanding the intent, or why are we going through the things that we're going through, whether they're analyzed from a truther perspective, is this real or not real, or whether it's being presented as consensual reality, the mainstream reality that 95 out of 100 people, I don't know how many people, are so set on making the world as they're told to be the true world they exist in. I think fundamentally, let's say if it's 9 out of 10 people who agree with the world that is presented through education, through institutions, in culture generally, what we call civilization has established a story that is accepted by wherever you might live, probably 9 out of 10 people, but it's probably more. But let's just say 9 out of 10, there's one person that may have questions about everything and anything, like myself and Matt. And the reason that works, that civilization has understood, those who are in charge, the owners, as I call them, or George Carlin called them, the owners have understood that civilization is a fabulous tool in order to propagate a measure of control. Ultimately, that's the explanation I give, and 9 out of 10 people go along because it's the easy road to take. Rather than say to yourself, this doesn't make sense. Even though many people are aggressive, I'm my own person, I have my own ideas. No, you don't. Unless you question all the things going on around, whenever it comes up, and not be willing to say, I'll just go along with this. As long as there's anything that happens in our day-to-day life that makes no sense, but you say, I'm just willing to go along with it. Of course, you have to have a mind to say, this doesn't make sense. And of course, if you're in that position of being consensual, you go along with shit and say, I'm not affected by any of that. You'll never ask that question. So you're the 9 out of 10 people who are going to die stupid. That's what I say. You're going to die stupid if you've never questioned in your life, especially not just the important big events, but do we live on a ball or not? Most people are running away whenever you might bring up that topic of what is the reality that we truly live on in. Many people run away. But my concern, my preoccupation isn't so much with what in fact the reality is, because I've accepted that everything that I've been told is 99% not true, because you can't leave too many gaps open for this reality to be exposed. So everything that we're being told on some level is false. And it takes a person of conscience to deal with this through their own perception and understanding. Like to learn within myself that which I understand to be true is not going to happen by someone telling me from outside, although that could be. I mean, people outside can tell me stuff that's true, but I need to verify it in some form or other, so I'm not a consensual being. The consensual being is the lost soul. I've often said too, I have a romance with eternity, and eternity, from the way I imagine and experience, this is difficult to articulate because I think we all have a relationship with the mystery. And for me, eternity demands that I actually ask some questions before I die and have a reaction, and not just sit there and look out at the world like a swami sits there and he's done all his work. Siddhartha Buddha sits and at the end he just sort of is absorbed into the ethers of everythingness. No, there is a demand on each individual, on each soul that exists at any given time. There is a demand placed on us if you have this sense of eternity, something this is not a finite existence, that you close your eyes, you stop breathing, your heart stops bumping, and you disintegrate back into the earth, there is some other kind of continuity. This is a principle that I go by. And as I say, I have a romance with this mystery, this principle, the idea of eternity. So what I'm saying is I see myself very different from people like Matt, who I like. I've said often I like. And he introduced me to certain questions I may not have asked, but there was a kind of, I think what happens, there is an entertainment value if it just is a matter of exposing the bastards. There is no real gain for anyone just to expose the bastards. Someone might argue with me because then maybe we open the possibility for another reality. But whenever you open that, when you create that vacuum, a Ceausescu vacuum, somebody else moves in and takes over. So the true exposure is not about the bastards, but it is about ourselves. Myself. This is kind of the idea of having an opportunity, being given. Life itself is a gift. But what is behind that? When you say it's a gift, when I say it's a gift, there's a point to a gift. It's in order to maybe just simply show appreciation that someone exists. If somebody has a birthday and you give them a present, it's a statement of appreciation that you're so happy and grateful they're alive, and you want to reward them for being in your life, and you want to show that appreciation whichever way. It's a gift. Then it's something that is gratuitous. It's like there's nothing attached to it. It's yeah, a gift is free. So a free gift is a double positive. Makes no sense. Anyway, so my thought, my question, this is not about crisis actors. The reason things happen fundamentally is because in a collective sense and in a personal way, I'm convinced it's something we need to go through. We want to go through. We want to learn from, whether it's tragic or whether it's enjoyable. Obviously, people say I'd rather have good experiences than bad experiences. But ultimately, the indicator for me is that all experiences are opportunities, are ways of saying just the fact that we're able to have experiences on whatever level they might be, that we are willing to do what I say is the inner work. And when I say the inner work, I'll reference again that biblical quotation by the rabbi who said, the kingdom of heaven is within. It makes a lot of sense. And it makes sense because it presents the possibility that what we feel to be so factual and unequivocally real, in fact, is not real unless it's related to the kingdom that is within. And the owners, the bastards, make sure that we never really get beyond a certain point of that experience of the kingdom within, because I suppose maybe the pleasure syndrome, that kind of feeling of success and being, as we see, let's say with Hollywood actors, everybody is clamoring to be an Oscar winner, and that sort of aspiration in people to get the pleasure and the gifts that come along with it, all the what we reap the benefits of this lifestyle that is so full of pleasure and satisfaction. Well, there is really very little satisfaction in using things. The greater satisfaction is in being able to share or give of oneself. This is something, if you just look deeply, the greatest pleasures I've had is in giving something to someone that is truly appreciated. I mean, if people just, so it's not just in terms of like giving a thing, but giving of yourself, and then it's appreciated. And even if it isn't, I still have the satisfaction of knowing within myself that I have given. And this feels really good. It actually does. I mean, I enjoy getting, but I also enjoy giving. I think I'm likely preaching to the choir here in terms of the true expression of a life lived is a life when, like veterans always, we thank them for their service, which means they have given something. The ultimate gift is dying for me. I'd like to say to all the veterans, you don't have to die for me. You don't have to go, or let me put it this way. You don't have to go 10,000 miles to the other side of the earth to kill someone to help me. I'd rather you didn't. All you veterans that might listen to this, I would prefer you to stay at home. And if you're going to be of service, you're going to be of service at home, not somewhere tens of thousands of miles away. I'd like to say that. So I'm just bringing up the veteran thing because it's something people understand. They always say, oh, whenever you say veteran, oh, thanks for your service. Well, I don't feel that way. I only feel that there is a potential there, but it's not the way it is being exercised and practiced now. The veteran side of things is usually to do with pillage and raping somewhere else far away. And even if you don't pillage and rape, you're still involved in some kind of atrocity that should not be like Fallujah, Iraq, the litany of wars that have been fought outside your own territories. You should start to question why. And I want to just draw attention to I think a very noble soul, this James Topp, who's walking across Canada in order to protest the mandates and the abuses, the stealing of freedoms that were never given by anyone. And he mentioned, I think it was, or one of his friends mentioned that veterans do not give anybody any freedom, they protect freedom. And that is a service. I would say when you protect our freedom here at home, which James Topp is doing by walking across Canada protesting the freedoms that have been removed from us through the COVID shit show, and this not being about crisis actors. It probably is about crisis actors in some way. So my point is the idea, when I listen to Matt from Quantum of Conscience and other people who are analyzing and understanding the breakdown in reality, that reality is not what we're told. This is a valuable statement to make. But the next step, what I've insisted or what I have understood, is not to be frustrated by how few people seem to understand what he understands, but what I say is people go through the things they go through in the larger scheme of things, the idea of this mystery we are a part of. For some reason, we go through the experiences we need to have. It's very likely if we were able to understand this on a level of swaminess, where you sit on a rock, maybe that's what happens when you understand this. There is no need to act in the world anymore. Maybe that is actually true. I don't know. Is it necessary to act when you actually understand that all actions are things we are learning from? And once you have learned, you don't need to act anymore. You sit and you smile at people as they walk by. I guess that is an action. You'll always, as long as we breathe, there's always going to be an action. And I don't think it's a good idea to say, well, I've learned everything I can and I'm going to kill myself or something, or I'm going to die now. I also don't think that's how it works. That it's, since this is a gift, you just don't sort of shit on it. And most people treat their bodies like garbage cans. If you just look at even the idea of what we eat and how we pollute ourselves and we poison ourselves for the sake of taste and pleasure, whatever. That pleasure, again, nobody would in their right mind ever want to eat a McDonald's hamburger if they understood and knew what it was about, unless they were told this is the food that'll make them feel good. It's called comfort food, or whatever it is that we're told. And sugar is comfort food. And anyone in their right mind, I mean, most animals except maybe ants, I don't know what other animals love sugar, but maybe birds. I mean, it has its place. There's energy in sugar, but for human beings, sugar is not a good idea. So that again, it's kind of like a realization that once we understand this is an opportunity, this is something that is very important for each human being to, to come to a resolution within themselves, what is real to them, and not something that somebody tells me what is real, but what I have on a most basic principle level of understanding what is truly significant, important, meaningful to me. And then, of course, all things happen around me. The world goes on. The world, that's what I perceive. No matter what I think or wish or whatever, the world goes on. But the world is not the same once I have understood something, what is significant and meaningful to me. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if we don't have that personal sense of meaning, the world may go on and we're just part of the world. What was that other thing? Be part of the world, but not of the world. That's another quote from the rabbi, I believe. I'm not that up on all the quotations that actually may have some significance. But and I use this. I use the idea of the rabbi, of course, the Yahweh Jesus character, who made a lot of had a lot of insight into the nature of this reality as it relates to human beings, and a kind of that idea of continuity. I may not agree with the words the way they're interpreted in consensual scripture, and the way, you know, interpretation as a whole is always through the eyes of someone else, but I'll take out of it what I can. So my thought today, other than seeing if I get a strike on YouTube for saying Matt says he can't say crisis actor, so you know, I say crisis actor again, even though it's not about crisis actors. The thing that I am expressing and have been expressing, obviously has to do with me 100%. And what I'm not just sort of blowing a bunch of wind out of my mouth when I talk. I reflect, I think, what is it that I can contribute on this platform, or to anyone, whether it's, you know, if I'm making paintings or if I'm having ideas about things, what is it that is part of what I, in my experience, have felt to be of importance and meaning. And this is what I've come to. I keep saying it's not about just understanding the world out there and what I call the bastards. What a Swami called them bastards, I probably just laugh at him because it's so ridiculous to be of the world and in pursuit of all that stuff. It would just be funny, I guess. But, you know, I can't really laugh at all the pain and suffering that comes out of that kind of understanding of the world. See, I've never appreciated that in the enlightened ones who can just sort of sit back and smile, and probably because I'm not like that. I'm not there. Maybe I would be like that too. But the suffering and the mayhem and what the fucking mucks are doing. So yeah. Anyway, I think I'll end it here. It's a thing I keep bringing up, and I have commented on different YouTubers who are very preoccupied with the idea of people not being able to see what's so obvious, and it's because they got to go through it, and until they have that moment, that epiphany, that feeling within themselves that there are things that are not of this world, that are totally within that inner kingdom, which will ultimately give meaning to what goes on outside. And it is completely independent and irrelevant what anybody might say is important or not important on the outside. That's what I want to say. And if it helps, like Matt will never see this, but if people like who watch this, who also watch Matt, this is my point, that he has always been, he's been right. I have no issue with his analysis on all the things going on in the world. But what he misses, the frustration he feels, is why is this still able to go on? Well, it's because people need to go through it, because they don't want to do the inner work. And I don't know the extent to which he's frustrated. He hasn't done his own inner work. That's what I'm saying. How do you do the inner work, Tom? You always talk about the inner work. How do you do the inner work? Here's my thought on how. Okay, I'm not finished yet. Here's my thought on how to do the inner work. I talked to a lovely friend yesterday over Skype, in New Zealand, and talking to her, this sort of occurred to me. How is it that we can deal with certain difficulties or struggles we have? And my thought was that if I can express something uniquely of myself, whether that is even just simply drawing a line or a combination of lines or a real complex image of something without any judgment whatsoever, it cannot be judged through any standard, because all standards outside of what comes from within are irrelevant ultimately, right? So if you're making a painting and you make marks and you're related to the masters and classical history and everything we've come through, that is a mistake. It Okay, when I went to art school, I was introduced to all the litany of standards that exist out there. And they're valuable from the point of view is, well, you say you got to start somewhere when you go on that inner search. So having my extended family, as I consider them, the great artists in the past, give us a push in the right direction. But that doesn't mean the work that I make has to look like someone else. Often it does. It's just how it works. It's like you think you come up with something and nobody else has ever thought, well, hello. No, I think in many ways, maybe everything has been expressed and done in the large scheme of things, but we have to do it ourselves. We can't sort of say, well, I'm going to paint like Rembrandt now because I really love Rembrandt and I think I can make the images of Rembrandt relevant. It's possible. If I actually dedicated 40 years to reproduce Rembrandt, and I was able to get even a little close to it, and then it might become meaningful or contemporary again. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that without judgment, to risk and to challenge ourselves to do something that represents our inner world is an extremely important achievement before we die. Whether it's through a physical mark or whether it's writing or something, I think it has to be a creative nature. That's the way I see the world anyway. Others, like I was listening to Ivan Illich, who was a deep, thoughtful, reflective person, and he understood a lot of things about himself, I believe. And he made reflections on the world that was out there that really made a lot of sense to me. So that creative part, for a person like that comes through sitting down, and he was in Mexico and his chickens were cackling and the roosters were crowing, and he formulated ideas that made a lot of sense, which is a creative act as well. But I was saying to my friend that just without judgment, whatever it is that we're going through, to allow those inner things to emerge, to come out, to see it physically in front of us. It really does help. We're very physical beings, and it does give us some sort of a confirmation about that thing where as we go through that, as I said, I don't want to die stupid. I want to have had, I want to have extended myself, not from anything coming from outside, but everything that comes from within me. And making a painting is without being judgmental, and it's a struggle. It's I've always been very judgmental. I've been very accepting, but also very judgmental of my work, other people's work, and it's I don't think it's necessary. It is what it is. Whether or not people like it, dislike it, criticize it, don't criticize it, it just is what it is. And there have been many contributions by people that that have taken this approach. I think the idea of abstraction is a kind of permission. And abstraction didn't happen in the 30s or early 1900s with Malevich and other people who express themselves. It happened a long time before. Even if you look at Goethe, the German poet's color theory, they're basically abstractions. He was working with color wheels and color formulations of color that were lovely, beautiful abstractions. And some of his watercolors felt like abstractions to me. And the idea of abstract literally to me means inner world. That's sort of how I interpreted when I was introduced to the abstract expressionist artists and, like I said, people of the early 1900s like Malevich or the Dada people, and to some extent. So anyway, no, I think I'll end it here. My thought on crisis actors. And I'm going to call this video Crisis Actors to see if the YouTube platform is averse to that word, even, to see if I get a strike. So, all right then. Until the next time.